Welcome back to the channel, everyone. So, as you can see, I've been pretty busy. Firewall is for the most part done now. I have by far not done a perfect job on anything, and that my plan is not. Even the body work, I'm not going to make this a perfect truck. It's the easiest way to explain it, I guess, is it's more or less just like a shop truck build. It's going to be rough around the edges. Nothing's going to necessarily be perfect. Even if we do a decent paint job, it's still going to be rough around the edges. But I body worked roughly for the most part. There's a rough spot right here, but that's just where that transition was made, and I didn't fiberglass that area or anything like that. All that's going to get sealed up from the inside, and there's a double weld seam there, so I just left it. It'll be hid once the engine's set in, but for the most part, Firewall looks good. However, I wasn't thinking, and I done all this, and I still have to get the clutch master and all that through the Firewall. Worst case scenario, I'll have to spray it with a little bit of paint and clean it up in a spot or so. I'm not worried about it. I do have the clutch master, the reservoir, the line. I've gotten a bunch of parts in. I'll go through and tell you what I've got, and hopefully what we're going to get done in this video. I haven't fully thought out exactly where I'll end at. I guess we'll just see how it goes, but I somewhat have an idea of what all I want to get accomplished in this video. So, excuse me. As you can see, Firewall's cleaned up, a little bit of body work done, coat of paint put on it. Frame, I have went through here and roughly with some rust barrier and the areas that I couldn't get to with a brush with the rust barrier. I ran out of spray can rust barrier, so I just used some paint. Now I'm not done with the frame area, so I know like the A-arms down here, they're still rusty and all that. I haven't decided if I'm doing those or not, but I did want to do the frame and clean up the frame, and I have done that for the most part. Trying to see what else. I've known this whole time I still needed to put a front brace back in this frame. I've already got the rear put in, the rear's done, but I needed to do one for the front, and I figured this would be the best time to do it. That's just some C-channel that I notched out to fit the frame rails and got it welded in there. Don't think it's going to cause any issues. There should be plenty of room for the radiator, because I believe the radiator is probably going to end up sitting right in front of the front clip mount there. So we should have plenty of room for the radiator, probably plenty of room for an AC condenser in front of that behind the brace, even if we wanted to do that. But I will show you what else I've been working on, and hopefully we're very close to being ready to drop the engine and transmission back in. But I've gotten the transmission cleaned up. I got it shot with a coat of paint. Now, I wasn't necessarily concerned with it. It wasn't leaking or anything like that. It wasn't super nasty. I just figured I'd go ahead while it was out. I'd clean it up. So I degreased it, cleaned it up for the most part, shot it with some paint. It'll be cleaner than it was. And then the engine is basically ready to go in. I had to redo 2 of the exhaust bolt holes, but it's got oil pan gasket came in, so it's got the oil pan on it. Water pump came in, so I've got the water pump on it. Head gaskets, all that's already been done. I've already explained all that. Valve covers are just sitting there to keep dust out. Intake's just sitting there with a couple bolts in it to keep dust out. I'll finish the top side of the engine once it's dropped in. I didn't want to have to try to drop it in with all that on it. It's just more I have to worry about scratching or scratching something else. So, but I think I'm at the point now where I need to get the engine off the stand, get the flywheel and the clutch and all that bolted up to it, and get ready to get the transmission mounted back to the engine, and then should be good to drop the engine in. Now there is a few things that I still need to take care of. I've still got to do an oil pressure sensor, and I've got to do the cam sensor. I have the old one, but I don't have an alignment tool, so I'm probably just going to buy a new one and get an alignment tool with it, and then I'll get an oil pressure sensor. I missed that in my list, and I knew I didn't have the tool for this. I just hadn't really messed with it yet and hadn't decided what I was going to do. But I do have to do get those two things. I got to get a pulley for the water pump. I don't have one. And I think, for the most part, that's about it. I do need to get a new gasket for the throttle body. I still have the one that was on there, but it's pretty hard and crusty. So it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to change it. I will say, one of the smaller bolt holes for the water pump on the top didn't feel the greatest. So if it gives us a problem, if it leaks, I'll get a new timing cover. And I will say this, I'm kind of curious if he had said something about this engine losing power. I did get off in there before I put the oil pan on it and kind of looked at the timing chain, because I don't necessarily remember when we done the timing cover gasket. I don't think we really paid attention to the timing chain. We were just trying to get it done and back running at the time. I'm curious if this engine hasn't slipped time before, just because there's quite a bit of slop in that chain, and he had said something about it losing power. So it is sitting at top dead center right now. I've already got it ready to drop the cam sensor in. That'll probably change once we get it in the truck. I'll probably have to go back through and put it back at top dead center. But what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dig out the engine hoist, get the intake plenum off and the valve covers off, and get ready to get that off the engine stand, and see if I can't get the clutch and all that mounted, the flywheel mounted back on it, and get the transmission bolted back to it, and maybe even get it set down in the truck this evening. I do want to, it's not terrible, but I'm going to clean up the transmission cross member and just spray it with a coat of paint. I'm just trying to clean up anything that I can clean up in the whole process. So I'll probably do that and let that dry real good while I'm getting the engine and all that ready. Or I may just wait and do that a little later. If the transmission's got to rest on a jack for a little bit, it can rest on a jack for a little bit. But yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. And I'm also working on getting the inner fenders cleaned up, wire wheeled and all that, and prepped so I can get them a coat of paint also. I'm going to do the back headlight back panels or whatever you want to call them, and the core support. I'm going to do those also. But just figured while everything was apart, I don't know that this will be the last time. Should be getting kind of close for it being the last time. Everything being apart and all that. So I'm going to try to get, for the most part, get everything cleaned up. If I plan on painting it or somewhat painting it and cleaning it up, I'm going to go ahead and do that. But I'm going to quit rambling, and I'm going to see if I can't get the engine stand or the engine hoist out and get this thing off of the engine stand, and see what we can't get accomplished today. So it's the next morning. I just had a lot going on yesterday, so I didn't get as much done as I would have liked to, but we did get the flywheel and clutch bolted in, the transmission bolted together, and the engine and trans dropped in. So I think my plan today is I'm going to probably go ahead and get the rest of the engine and everything bolted together. Got the rest of the gaskets. I got everything to finish it off pretty much. I do have to get a few things still, like I said, but I can go ahead and get what I have put on. I have a new alternator. I have a new fan and a fan clutch. I do have to get the pulley for all that. I also have a new, it won't matter right now, but once we get the inner fenders back on and all that, I have a new coolant reservoir. I do have the master and reservoir and line and all that for the clutch. I've got to get that installed, but I've got to get a brake pedal assembly that has the clutch pedal on it. I don't have one of those, and I need to get one of those still. I had looked at a local junkyard, and the ones they had were automatics, so I didn't look up there to get one. I'll probably just end up ordering one offline. So that'll probably take a week or so to get in, and then once that comes in, we can get the master cylinder mounted on the Firewall. And then we should be squared away for the most part on getting stuff mounted to the Firewall for now. Some stuff will change at some point, but for now, this is going to be the setup. Trying to think if there's anything else that I've forgotten. Oh, I did. Pick up a seat. Now, I have a friend that has an upholstery shop. So, I've got her working on a seat idea. And hopefully we'll get this took to her soon, and I'll get the seat done. I'm trying to get an idea now, though, of how I'm going to get the mounting done. I haven't decided if I'm going to make some just little platforms for it to sit on, or if I'm just going to make a whole complete different bracket for it to bolt in. But we do have a seat. It's out of I think it was like a mid-70s Ford F100 or F150. I think it was F100. I don't remember when they changed all of that, but we're getting there. We're getting a lot of progress, I feel like. So I'm gonna go ahead, set you up on the tripod, and I'm gonna start getting a bunch more picked away at this, and then I've got to finish cleaning up the inner fenders and the rest of the front clip stuff, but I want to try to get that cleaned up today also, so I can get those somewhat shot down with some paint, and we can get the whole front clip put back on it. That way I can start getting the wiring put back in. That's kind of the goal for the day. If I could get the front clip back on and kind of start getting the wiring back in, I'd be happy, because if I can do that, I can also get an idea for my coolant reservoir overflow tank. I've got to figure out like a battery tray idea, which I've thought on a little bit, but I've got to have the inner fenders and all that in to be able to do that. So that's what that's the plan. I'm gonna get you set up on a tripod, and we'll see what we can't get knocked out today. It's the next morning, so I've got a plan for this morning, but as you can see, got the front clip back on. I notched the bracket for the ABS control module so that the power steering line has a little bit more room there, and I'm trying to get an idea for a battery tray. I think I've got it figured out. Okay, sorry about that. I had a friend stop by for a few. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the battery tray figured out. I'm probably going to end up putting it here in this corner, just simplicity type thing. I won't have to mess with the wires will reach. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go ahead, get the battery tray took care of. That way, I think that may be one of the last things I need to do before I can paint my inner fenders and front clip. So I'm going to get that done real quick, and then we'll see what else we're going to do. It's the next morning, and I stopped last night. I've been trying to figure out exactly kind of where I wanted to mount some stuff, but I'll show you what I have gotten done. So you've seen I got the battery tray in. I've got to do some grinding and cleaning up still on that, but I'm going to do that and give all this a nice coat of paint. Right now, what I've been trying to figure out is I decided to run a factory style coolant tank, coolant overflow, and I'm wishing now that I wouldn't have, because it's going to be a nightmare to mount. It doesn't really set well anywhere. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is, this thing's only held together with 3 tabs. I think I'm going to split this tank and separate the 2. I just feel like that's going to make it quite a bit easier to mount, and I'm not 100% sure we'll even use the washer fluid. I mean, everything's here to use it except for the little spray nozzles on the hood. So I mean, I could always put some in somewhere, and we could use this. But I just haven't found a spot that worked for mounting it. And I know I'm gonna have to make something to mount it. That's not the issue. It's just getting it to sit somewhere, and I want it to stay below this lip here. And it's just, I don't really care for it anywhere. So that's what I'm thinking I may do. If I ruin it, I ruin it, and I'll buy one that's not this setup. But I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a cut-off disc or something, see if I can cut these and separate it, maybe even grind those down a little bit and smooth them off so they're not sticking off the side of the tank, and clean it up a little bit and just see. That's what I'm going to do. And then after I get that done, I'll just cut you back on and we'll see how that turns out. I'm not going to film it. I'm just going to knock it out real quick and see how it goes. If it doesn't go well, we'll know. But if I can get it separated and get those tabs cleaned up, I feel like it'll be a lot easier to mount, and the spots that we could mount it, we'd have more options. So that's what I'm going to do now, and I'll see how it goes. Okay, it's later in the evening, and I have gotten a little bit accomplished this evening. Like I said, I got this separated and mounted in. Now, I welded a tab here that kicks off at an angle. I'm probably going to have to shorten it a little bit just to give a little bit more room to get to that bolt for the front core support. And then I just made a little piece of angle iron, 2 bolt holes in it, and then used a riv nut on this side. But it's in there, it's not going nowhere. I like that. That was kind of the idea I've had for just that tank alone when I was somewhat thinking of cutting them apart like that. Now, I'm still not 100% sure. Where did it go? I had it earlier. Let me find it. There it is. I'm not, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm not 100% sure still that we'll use this. Like I said, everything will be here except for the squirters themselves. And I could get some squirters and put some squirters in somewhere. So I may end up putting this in here. It'd be something different that it didn't typically have. So we may put this in. I haven't messed with, if I would, where would I mount it or anything like that. I'll deal with that later if we end up running it. I did also, while I had the front clip and everything back off to do this, I went ahead, cleaned these up, sprayed them down in a coat of paint, and I also did the inner fenders, cleaned them up. Now, like I said, they're not perfect. I'm not going to do any plastic filler or anything like that on them. They're in rough shape, and I would have way too much work in the inner fenders alone if I went through and fixed all the little rust spots. For instance, like this here, that's a rust spot. This hole, there's a rust spot right beside it. This edge here is kind of rusted out. So, you know, like these 3 holes here, those were rust holes. I didn't do anything with them, I just left them. So I'm not going for perfect on the inner fenders. For the most part, they're going to be covered. You're not really going to see a lot of them. That's our little battery tray area after it was cleaned up and shot down. I don't know if I had said or not, but for the most part, what I ended up having to do to get this in right here is I only had to notch really from here to here and then down a little bit. I did cut it all the way back to here, but I actually think that would have been fine because it's not even really touching the battery tray. But this spot right here was in the way, so that got all notched out. And you can see we got it all boxed in and welded up there. So, but yeah, that's what I've gotten done today. It's already 9:30, pushing 10 o'clock maybe, so I'm probably not going to do much more this evening. Something I am going to do, and hopefully I can get it figured out. I want to kind of get an idea of how I would mount this seat. Now I know, like I've said before, it's not just going to be a sit it in there and mark some hole. I'm going to have to build something for that seat to sit on. I would have really liked to have found a seat that had some type of legs off the side. But I'm not trying to spend an arm and a leg on a seat. And I found this one. It's in pretty decent shape. The bones are in good shape. And it's got tracks. The rear of the seat will kick forward, so we could use behind the seat for storage or something like that. But something else, I'm hoping that when I take this to get it reworked at the upholstery shop, one, I'm hoping that I can get the thickness of the padding down some, because I feel like the seat's just too high. And then I'm probably going to try to cut the back down a little bit, maybe, I don't know, 2 to 4 inches, 3 or 4 inches, something like that. Just because, one, I want to keep the seat back under the back window. And I also think that if I was to cut the back down just a little bit more, that in turn would let me scoot the seat back a little bit more. Right now, the only thing that's touching the back wall of the seat is the very top. And if I cut that down a little bit, I think I could scoot the seat back some, and that would help some also. The seat to me is a little far forward, and I can't remember if the tracks were back or forward when I took the seat out of the truck. I believe I pushed it back before I got it out of the truck. But another issue, that steering wheel is not going to work like that. Most of the evening I have spent just kind of going around the truck and getting back on track with things that I have not completely finished or things that I need to address again. And something that I hadn't really messed with. I hadn't had the steering column in here since I'd set the seat in here. So that steering column, the steering wheel is way too low. What I think needs to happen, I think that dash needs to be notched, and that steering column needs to be tucked up in the dash panel there some, and then weld all that back in. And one, that'll give us more room underneath the steering wheel, and it should help with making everything look a little better. I've never really been sure that that was in the right spot because I didn't necessarily have a seat. All I had was a seat frame, so with no padding or anything like that. Just always felt off. I'm not sure. Some of it may just be the seat is too high because of the way the floor was done. I'm going to do everything I can to get that seat dropped down as low as I possibly can. Sitting in there, it don't feel bad, but there is too much padding on that seat. You sit too high. If you see the driver's side is wore out, you sit on the driver's side, it's about perfect height wise, but you come over to the passenger side where it's not wore out and you're too high. So the padding needs to be cut down some, which the padding would be redone because it's shot and old. But I'm going to do everything I can to get the seat as low as I can. I've thought about maybe looking into cutting out the center of the seat some, so that would actually be able to drop the seat down a little bit more, maybe make it where it would cradle the trans tunnel. But I don't know. My plan for the rest of the evening is I'm just gonna go around this. I'm not gonna video it. I'm going to spend a little time on trying to get a game plan for this and how I want to build some platforms for the seat to sit on, or what. I thought about just doing some legs, welding some legs on the seat base, and then bolting the legs to the floor. Not sure how I'm going to do it. I'm really not. But I think that's what I'm going to do the rest of the evening. It's already kind of late. I don't want to start doing anything super loud or anything this evening. I still need to pull the rad support back off. I need to wire wheel it a little bit, clean it up, get it ready for some paint. And then these turned down a little rougher than I would have liked. You can see here. Now I know a lot of this is covered. You don't see a lot of it. But what I'm going to do is, being I got to pull this back off, I got to pull those back off to get this back off. While this is off, I'm going to sand those down again a little better than last time and shoot them with another coat of paint. And I'm not going for perfect, but I'd like to, some of these rough spots that stick out pretty bad, I'd like to get some of them knocked down and took care of, just in case if one of them is landing right in a spot where you're going to see it, maybe it won't stand out so bad. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Tonight, I'm going to take a little bit of time. I haven't really sat here and looked at it or thought about it or anything like that. But this evening, I'm going to take a little time. I'm going to look at this thing, and I'm going to see what I end up figuring out as far as trying to mount this or make some mounts or whatever the case is going to be. And then maybe that's something I can try to tackle in the morning and go ahead and get it took care of, because as soon as I've got this seat where I can somewhat mount it in, bolt it down, I'm going to try to get it took off to the upholstery shop as soon as possible. And the steering column is going to get addressed hopefully before that comes out, also to go to the upholstery shop. But I want to get the brake pedal and clutch pedal assembly before I rework the steering column, because I have a brace that ties into all that and ties into the Firewall. So I want to make sure if me moving that, if I need to change that brace up, I want to use the brake pedal assembly that I'm actually going to be using, just in case there's slight differences or whatever between the one that I have and the one that I need. So I think that's what I'm going to do for the rest of the night. And then I've found some brake pedal assemblies. I have found out that there's one at the local junkyard. It's a 4-cylinder, but the brake pedal and clutch pedal assembly is the same. So I may try the next day or so, if I've got a little bit of extra time, I may just try to run out to the junkyard and grab the one that's here local, and see about just using it. That way I can go ahead and get it. Don't have to wait a week or however long to get one sent in. But so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take some time, do a little figuring on this seat and see what I can figure out with that, and then we'll pick back up in the morning and we'll hopefully try and get maybe the seat to where we can bolt it in, maybe finish getting the front clip cleaned up, a little bit of paint put on it, and once all that's done and the fenders are put back on it, I plan on trying to finish out doing a little bit of body work on the front fenders also. where we widened them. I haven't finished that on the front fenders yet, and I would like to get it finished up, or not really finished up, but to the point that I have all the other body work on the truck. So I'm gonna hop off here. I'm going to spend a little bit of time this evening doing this, and then we'll see you guys in the morning. Okay, everyone, it's the next day, and I have been a little busy, and I've gotten seat brackets figured out, and I'll show you what we're doing. So what I've done is I've went ahead and I've started one, and just to see if my idea is going to work. So I'm going to make something to where I can bolt it to the floor, and then I can bolt the seat to these brackets. I was going to make something and just weld it in, but my thought is for some reason, if we decide to not run this seat, or we change it later down the road, or whatever, whatever we had made for this seat won't be welded and made into the floor, may not work with the next seat. So I'm going to make these, they'll bolt in, and then the seat will bolt to these. But it's just some angle iron. The pads on the end needed to be a little bit wider for the bolts. And then I made some legs with some square tubing. And then I'm going to put some pads on the bottom of the feet to bolt it down with. Now, what I may end up doing, the front leg will be bolted. My pad will be, say, this way. Yeah, that'll be the front. This is the passenger side. So my pad, I'm going to run this way on the front, and there's the main brace in the center of the floor. This sits right over it. So I'll just have to drill some new holes in that main brace and bolt it in. Now the back doesn't line up with a brace. So what I'm probably going to do with it is wherever this falls on the floor, I'm going to take a bigger piece of some thicker 12 gauge or whatever I have, thicker material, and I'm gonna weld a plate on the floor just to give it some extra thickness, so maybe we won't have to worry about the bolts pulling through the floor, it being thin or anything like that. We'll give it a little bit of extra strength right there just for the bolts to bolt down. But the back one is gonna run like this, so they'll be opposite. That's how I'm gonna do it. I mean, it wouldn't matter if you done the back one the same way, but there's less room in the back to get to it, and I figure with it being this way, maybe it'll help as far as I don't know. That's just how I'm gonna do it. Probably ain't gonna make a difference one way or the other, but that's how I'm gonna do mine. I'm gonna run them like that. But they won't be this big, this long. I'm just using those for reference. So, but that's what I'm about to do now. Basically these three pieces, and then it'll be one of those for one side of the seat bracket. This will be, my full length is 18 inches. My height is 5 inches, and that actually may end up being a little bit shorter. I actually think I can sit the seat just a little bit lower. So that's why I haven't done the feet on these yet. I want to get the other side made. I want to get them both kind of sitting in spot with the seat sitting on them. And I want to see how much I could actually take off of these and still keep the center of the seat off of the trans tunnel. I'm going to get the seat as low as I possibly can, in hopes that it'll just, I feel like something's off in the truck, and I don't know if it's the steering column being low throwing it off or what, but I'm going to get the seat as low as I can. So if we can end up taking another inch off of this, I'm going to take an inch off, as long as the center of the seat's still not touching the trans tunnel. So let me get you set up on a tripod. I'll get suited up to do some cutting and some welding, and we will get this scrap metal here turned into a seat bracket. Okay, so I went ahead and finished knocking these out, kind of fine-tuned them a little bit. I ended up cutting about 1 inch back off the legs, and then I put the pads on the bottom. I know I said I was going to run them this way and run the back the way it is, but I kind of just got tied up into getting them together and welded in, and didn't realize what I'd done until it was already done. It's not going to cause any issues. It'll be fine. I have got holes drilled in the pads for the floor. I haven't drilled the holes in the floor yet. The tops are bolted to the seat, so like they're already bolted to the seat. I've just got to get it bolted to the floor. I don't know if I'm going to do that right this minute, but it's good enough. The seat's sitting on its own. It's not on blocks anymore, and it's to the point, 8 holes, and we can bolt it down. So I'll get those drilled. I want to get the floor finished up. As you can see, got a little bit of rust coming back where I've had it outside here and there, so I want to go back through, finish grinding the floor down, cleaning the floor up. I've got some seam sealer for it. I want to get it seam sealed and get a coat of paint on the floor soon, hopefully. My plan was to do it in this video also, but I don't know that I'll get to it because I may try to get the steering wheel moved up some, or the steering column moved up some, before I finish the floor up, just in case. I don't want to be burning spots into the floor right after I get done painting it or whatnot. So I don't know exactly what I will do here, if I'll wait and do this in another video, or if I may end up tackling it in this video. I'm not sure yet. But something I'm about to do, I'm going to go ahead, now that I've got the seat sitting in there, it's took care of. What I think I'm going to do now is, I think I'm going to pull the front clip back apart. I want to sand these down a little better, and I'm going to wire wheel the rad support and get those painted and back on the truck. And then once those are back on the truck, I'll probably go ahead and get the fenders put back on, start getting the front put back on it. Like I'd said, I think I said in this video, sometime soon I want to finish getting where we widened the front fenders. I want to get those finished with a little bit of body work done on those. They've got fiberglass on. I just need to finish sanding and do a skim coat of plastic filler or Bondo. But I want to finish a little bit here on the front clip. I want to get these sanded, these front two front panels sanded, and then the rad support wire wheeled, cleaned up, some paint shot on those, and then we'll get all this put back together. Alright, so I took a little time this evening, as you can see. Got that took care of. I pulled everything off the front. These got sanded, primed, shot with some paint. Now, like I've said, by far, I'm not doing the perfect job. I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to go through and fix all the rust on all these hidden panels. I know one may say it's kind of redundant, I guess, to fix all the rust in the body and this and that and then leave this. Well, if I start tackling every little rust hole in every panel on this truck, I might as well just buy all new panels and completely build a new truck, because they're all really, really rough. And the amount of time that I would have getting every one of them back perfect and straight, I'm not going for it. Nothing on the truck's perfect, so as you can see, this isn't either. But this one's the same way, especially where that lower panel bumper valance bolts. It's really pitted, and several rust holes right in there. Now my plan is once everything's done, for the most part everything's done, I want to undercoat the whole bottom side. I don't know if it'll get done, a little here, a little there. Nothing has been undercoated yet, so. But the inner fenders, these front panels, I'll undercoat the back side of those. The inner fenders will get done, the whole bottom side of the cab. That's the plan. The inside of the rear fenders, inside of the front fenders. That's the plan. So we'll see how all that goes. Now, let me get back on track. This is done. I'm happy with where we're at here for now. What I'm gonna go ahead and do now, more than likely, not more than likely, it will. I'll have to take all the wiring back out of the inside of the cab. Whenever I go to raise that steering column up into the dash some, I'll pull all that wiring back out from under the dash just so we don't burn anything. Unfortunately, that's probably going to open a can of worms, because that'll probably in turn, the way that I've got the gauge cluster mounted right now will probably not work. So I'll probably have to completely redo that and how it's mounted, which isn't a big deal because I wasn't done with it yet anyways. I was going to wait and make sure everything was going to work. I wasn't going to really have any big issues with anything, and then I was going to do some final touches on all that. So but I'm going to go ahead right now and I'm going to finish trying to get the engine bay wiring in. That won't affect me doing the steering column and whatnot inside the truck. But I'm trying to get an idea of computer placing and where I'm going to put the computer, how I'm going to mount the computer, what I'm going to do with it, and whatnot. So, I know I probably should have already figured that out by now. And I've thought about it, but I've never really messed with it, I guess. I just kept putting it off, and I don't really know why. But I'm going to do that now. I'm going to get all the wiring back in, for the most part. That'll be, I'll have to at least get the main harness coming around with the fuse panel and all that, and then the engine harness. The computer harness comes off the engine harness, so I'll have to get all that back in, and while I'm doing it, I'm just going to go ahead and get it all laid out, routed, pulled through on the engine and whatnot. Wherever it needs to go, it's going to go ahead and go there. For some reason, we end up having to take it back out. But I'm hoping none of this has to come back out. I'm hoping we're to that point. Now, I will say something that I've realized, and I wished I would have realized this sooner, but the truck that this engine came out of was a 99. The frame is a 01. The engine that was in the 01 and this one is a little bit different. The intakes were different. The 01 didn't have an EGR valve. So there's some differences. So more than likely what I'm going to end up doing is I'll probably pull this driver's side exhaust manifold back off. I'll probably just delete that EGR valve and all that mess. I had thought about doing that before I ever put the exhaust manifolds on the engine, and I talked myself out of it and just said I'd just run it all. And then I got to thinking that this harness doesn't have the plugs for some of the EGR stuff, so I'm not even going to run it. Why they're different, I don't know, but they are. But that's what I'm going to do. I'll get you set up. and I'm going to start picking away at some wiring again, get some of this pulled through, and then I'm going to somewhat let you in on my idea for mounting the computer. Okay, so majority of the engine wiring is done. The only section of wiring I have left to put in under the hood, as far as I know, is just the section for the battery, starter, alternator, and all that. I don't necessarily need it in here right at this moment, and I've got to redo the wires for the starter. So I'm not going to mess with getting it in here right now. The majority of what I wanted in here at this point is in here. All the engine wiring, like I said, for the most part, alternator, starter, except for those, is in, plugged up, routed. I'll probably do some more cleaning and tucking and stuff like that at some point. I just wanted to get it all in here for now. And like I said, I want to get somewhat to a point where I can address the computer. Now, I have an idea on how I'm going to do this. Is it going to work out the way I'm hoping? I don't know. I hope. It would be pretty simple for the most part to mount the computer in the firewall. I mean, this wire would reach almost all the way over here, and I could cut a hole, pop it right here in the firewall. Something like that. Now, only problem with that is I don't want to be cutting up on the firewall, and I want to make sure that it's nice and waterproof, tight, sealed, so we don't have no issues. So what I think I'm going to do is I have a couple of these laying around. I'm thinking of using an ammo tin for the computer box. Now, I've done a little bit of looking. if I cut the handle off, I'll have plenty of room. Cut a hole in the lid, and it will just barely fit. So, some of you may think I'm crazy, others may think it's a good idea, as well as I do. This way I know for sure it'll be watertight. We won't have to worry about any moisture getting in there to it. And if we do, it'll be years down the road. The one thing I do have to do is I've got to figure out how and where I want to mount it. I've thought of just tucking it right here off of the firewall. So I don't know. I know that's kind of big and bulky to be sticking under the engine bay, but I think it'll add some character to the engine bay. I'll most definitely sand it down and paint it. It will not stay green, but that's what I'm gonna do. Or that's what I'm gonna start with anyways. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Ammo tins aren't very expensive, so I mean, I'm not losing a lot if I end up ruining it and it doesn't work. So that'll probably be what I start on tomorrow. It's already like 11 o'clock this evening, and I'm going to call it a night. I've gotten quite a bit accomplished today as far as front clip wise and wiring. I did also decide I'm just gonna weld those brackets to the floor. It's gonna make it a lot simpler. It's gonna be a headache to get in there and mark my holes where I need to drill them. So I'm gonna weld those in. If something ends up changing, I'll just cut them off the floor and we'll change it up. But that's what I'm gonna do for now. Just kind of trying to make it simple. I spent about 20-30 minutes messing around trying to get the holes marked, and I just couldn't get them marked good enough for me to know where they needed to go. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe I can just tack weld them in place, pull the seat, and then drill the holes. But that wouldn't have worked because I can't get access to the holes with the brackets in the way. So I'm just going to weld them in. That'll eliminate all of the headache of having to measure and hope and pray we get holes in the right spot. So it's not a big deal. Seat will still unbolt from the brackets. So that is kind of what but I have already went ahead and tacked those brackets in. They're not fully welded. They're tacked good enough that I can unbolt the seat, pull the seat out, finish welding them in. I was just trying to get it to the point to where I can start working on that floor. I think I'm going to try and move the steering wheel up before I take the seat out, or not necessarily move it all the way up, but at least get it started, the steering wheel, started back on messing with the steering wheel before I pull the seat out. That way I kind of know that it's sitting where I want it, and we don't have to deal with this mess again. Excuse me. So, trying to stay on the light and not cast a shadow. Not anything else that I can think of right now at the moment. Oh, I did reroute this wiring different than I had it. Now, at the moment, I just got a couple of zip ties around that C-channel. I'm going to drill a couple holes in that C-channel or something so I can mount that wire better. But I drooped it down under the battery box. That allowed me to tuck my headlight wires out that access hole. I'll probably have to extend those to get them to reach to the headlights, but that gets them a lot closer than they were up here the way I had it routed before. That also gets all that wiring hid off of the front clip. You don't see any of it, but it's just routed behind that C channel, droops back down under the frame, comes up over the frame and right through here. I have started going through and somewhat trying to get all my grounds put in. I think as far as this harness goes, engine harness goes, I think I've about got them all. I do believe there's one that comes off right here before the computer plug, but it looks like it got cut, so I'll have to fix that and get that grounded to the firewall. But I'm gonna call it a night. I'm gonna quit rambling. It's late. I've had a long day. We'll get a little bit of rest, and hopefully we can pick back up in the morning. And I'll probably start messing with that ammo can and getting an idea for it. I don't think it'll be that bad getting it done. I'll probably end up having more time in sanding it down and getting it repainted than anything. But I'm gonna try to get it to the point to where however I'm gonna mount it and wherever I'm gonna mount it, I've got all that figured out and done before I paint it, because I'm probably going to weld some brackets onto the box itself to mount it. But we'll see how that goes tomorrow, and hopefully we can get that in, maybe give it a little bit of little bit of character under the engine bay. So I'll see you guys in the morning. It's the next day, and as you can see, I spent a little time. I got that up there. Now I'm gonna sand that down and paint it. I'll probably paint it the same gray I painted the engine, just to kind of break that up a little bit, but I like it. It will work, most definitely. Something else I'm thinking is, I know I've said I wasn't sure if we were going to use it or not, but that is almost perfect. So what I think I'm going to do is, this has that mounting tab off the top and there's one off the bottom here. So I think I'm going to go ahead, before I get that painted, before I sand it down and put all that work into it and painting it, and then deciding later to use that, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to mount that thing in here. The only thing I'm missing on being able to use it, like I've said, is the squirter heads. So yeah, I'll figure out some squirters for it, and I'm just gonna go ahead and put it in here. I'll probably just run a tab off of the side here, and I'll run a tab off the bottom here, and we'll get that mounted to that. Shouldn't cause an issue. Something I am gonna do, I'm gonna run a ground strap from this box to the firewall just to be safe, and I may also run one from this box down to the frame. I don't think it'll need all that, but I'm gonna make sure it was grounded. I know in the factory Ranger it had a little platform it set on that was grounded, so this isn't necessarily sitting on anything, it's just dangling. The bolt's what's holding the computer. So yeah, that's what I think that's what I'm gonna do. We'll put that on there, and more than likely I get those two tabs welded on this box. I'm gonna go ahead and clean this box up, get it shot down with a little coat of paint, and that will probably be where I end this video. I've already got somewhat of a plan for the next video, so let me get you set up and we'll get that windshield washer fluid reservoir mounted. I got all that done. As you've seen, I just welded a piece of flat stock on the side and a piece of angle iron on the bottom. Give it a little bit extra stability across the bottom there. I like it. I'm pleased. Like I said, wasn't sure I was going to use this, but only missing the squirters, might as well. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull this all back apart. I just wanted to get it all in there and make sure everything fit like it was supposed to. I'm going to get it all back apart and start sanding this box down and get this box painted, and then we'll get it all put back together. Sorry about the sun and the camera. Okay, so let me show you. I got this sanded down, painted. I'm sure at some point it'll end up coming back off. I need to open this latch up and paint underneath it. I didn't hit it, but not an issue. I'll probably paint the head of these bolts also. But it's all on there. It works. I think it'll be perfect. Yeah. So probably sorry. Probably a good point to call this a video. Feel like I've gotten a bunch accomplished in this video, and I'd hope to get it out, edited and uploaded sooner than what it is. I was hoping 2 or 3 days ago to have it up, but my youngest son's been sick and just haven't had the extra time to get out here and do as much as I would like. So I figure I got that done, call it a video, and I've already started getting a few things together to get started on the next video. I've got a decent game plan for the next video. Hopefully I'm going to tackle the inside, the floor, the steering column, the clutch, get the master and the reservoir in and mounted, and the brake pedal, clutch pedal. May even try to get the fuel tank in it on the next one. Yeah, I've got quite a bit planned for the next video. So yeah, I just want to say I appreciate everybody that's been watching. I know it's been a little bit since I got a video out. We took a vacation, and schedule just hasn't worked out in the last couple of weeks for me to have much time out here, so it's taken quite a bit of time for me to get somewhat to a point in the video where I was happy. I wanted to get as much done as I possibly could, and then dealing with a sick kid doesn't help any. So he's feeling better, and that's all that's important. But I just want to say I appreciate everybody that's been watching. I appreciate everybody that subscribed and liked, commented, shared, anything like that. I'm gonna call this a video today and hopefully get picked up and started in on the next one today. I've got to go get a few things, and I'm gonna make a trip to the local scrap yard and see if I can score a brake pedal assembly. But as always, I appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.